And in other news, another Zero Hedge article, Japan set to release 1.2 million tons of radioactive Fukushima water back into the ocean, causing immeasurable damage. Just in case a global viral pandemic, whose sources are still unclear and apparently now include human feces, wasn't enough, coronavirus, the global outrage meter is about to go up to 11, with Japan now set to flood the world's oceans with radioactive water, in a move that will surely prompt a furious response from Greta Thunberg's ghostwriters, like her father. In case you didn't hear, her father's been writing all of her posts, all of her speeches. It's not even her. He got caught. Anyways, a move that will surely prompt furious response from Greta Thunberg's ghostwriters, unless, of course, it doesn't fit a very narrow agenda. A panel of experts advising Japan's government on a disposal method for the millions of tons of radioactive water from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear plant on Friday, recommended releasing it right into the ocean. And as Reuters notes, based on past practice, it is likely the government will accept the recommendation. Tokyo Electric, or TEPCO, has recently collected totaled 1.2 million tons of contaminated water. And by contaminated, we mean radioactive. Radioactive, radioactive. We're colored red to fit right in. Whoa. Anyways, TEPCO has collected nearly 1.2 tons of contaminated water from the cooling pipes used to cool fuel cores, keep them from melting. Since the plant was crippled by an earthquake and tsunami in 2011, the water is stored in huge tanks that crowd out the site. The panel, under the Industry Ministry, came to the conclusion, after narrowing the choice to either releasing the contaminated water into the Pacific Ocean or, letting it evaporate, and opted for the former, even though it means that Japan's neighbors will now have to suffer the consequences of the biggest nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Now, I'm just going to stop for a second. Could we not, we as in them, plenty of, there's land places, dig underground, cement, reinforced concrete, whatever it is, massive containment facility, just store the water, basically. And they say, this thing ought to be safe in 100 years from now, Okay, so it'll sit there in a secured area. And then in 100 years from now, when, or whatever the length of time technically is on that particular radioactivity. Because you might say, well, Joe, it's such and such one. Oh, it's take 1,000 years for that. Okay. But putting it in the air doesn't sound very good. And dumping it into the water doesn't sound any good either. And if they do it, darn well they're not just going to say, well, look, we've got, 50,000 barrels of stuff. Let's just go across the oceans and kind of put one over there, one little barrel over there, help it dilute a little bit. Darn well they're probably just going to dump this in the, generally speaking, same area, let her rip. Okay, that's probably how this is going to happen. Anyways, let's see what we got going on here. The panel under the Industry Ministry came to the conclusion, after narrowing the choice to either releasing the contaminated water into the Pacific Ocean or let it evaporate, and opted for the former, even though it means that Japan's neighbors will now have to suffer the consequences of the biggest nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Previously, the committee had ruled out other possibilities, such as what I guess I just suggested, underground storage, underground storage that lack track records of success. At the meeting, in other words, it costs too much money, we don't want to spend the money. At the meeting, members stressed the importance of selecting proven methods and said the government should make clear that releasing the water would have a significant social impact. Japan's neighbor, South Korea, has for much of the past decade retained a ban on imports of seafood from Japan's Fukushima region, imposed after the nuclear disaster, and summoned a senior Japanese embassy official last year to explain how the Fukushima water would be dealt with. They will soon have a very unsatisfactory answer. The buildup of contaminated water at Fukushima has been a major sticking point in the cleanup, which is likely to last decades, especially as the Olympics are due to be held in Tokyo this summer, with some events less than 60 kilometers from the wreck plant and the Fukushima seclusion zone, which will remain uninhabitable, it says, not for decades, but centuries. According to Reuters, athletes are planning to bring their own radiation detectors and food to the games. In 2018, the plant operator, TEPCO, apologized after admitting, well, it lied about the cleanup efforts and that its filtration systems had not removed all the dangerous material from the water and that the site was running out of room for storage tanks. Just a couple small issues, nothing to worry about. Among the ludicrous proposals concocted to contain the radioactive water was an idea straight out of Game of Thrones. An underground ice wall. It did not work. As a result, having given up on any containment approaches, Tokyo will now literally flood the world with radioactive water, perhaps in an attempt to mitigate the angry outcry from a world that is suddenly obsessed with a clean environment. Japan said its plans to remove all radioactive particles from the water except tritium, an isotope of hydrogen that cannot be effectively removed with current technology. While it is unclear just how Japan plans on filtering out radiation, we with them, I think he meant wish them, the best of luck with that particular PR nightmare. Quote, compared to evaporation, ocean release can be done more securely, the committee said, pointing to common practice around the world where normally operating nuclear stations release water that contains tritium into the sea. Under the sea, take it from me, under the sea. Needless to say, even the locals disagree. Releasing treated water into the ocean would do immeasurable damage to a fishing sector that has tried hard to get back to work, an industry source in the Fukushima prefecture city of Iwaki said. The evaporation proposal has fueled similar worries in farming and ranching circles, according to a source in the rice-growing business. The central government should understand the situation on the ground and thoroughly consider its response, the source said. Even so, it appears that despite considering the situation on the ground, the government is still set to go ahead with the discharge anyway. Why? The reason may also be in this, the simplest one. Money. He needs money. All-seeing, all-powerful, all-knowing, but he needs money. According to the Nikkei, discharging the water into the Pacific is generally seen by experts as the most logical option. Evaporation was successfully used for cleanup after the 1979 Three Mile disaster in the U.S., but releasing water into the sea, well, would cost less, and by ministry estimates, cut radiation exposure by more than half compared to with evaporation. Of course, this is the same ministry which for months lied about the full extent of the fallout caused by Fukushima disaster. Surely this time they're telling us the truth. The recommendation needs to be confirmed by the head of the panel, Nagoya University Professor Emeritus Ichiro Yamamoto, and submitted to the government at a later date, which has not been set. But a hard deadline looms as the government is running out of time to make a decision. The roughly 1,000 tanks on the Fukushima Daiichi site held 1.18 million tons of water as of December 12th, not far from the total capacity of 1.37 million. Plant operator TEPCO expects to run out of space around the year 2022. Even before then, the most important task in decommissioning the plant, removing spent nuclear fuel, is set to begin in 2021 at reactor number 2. The tanks take up space that will be needed for this work. And since it sounds like they're just adding more and more and more to the tanks, my question is, where's it coming from? There clearly is still a source of radiation coming from somewhere if you keep adding to this. So you're going to dump all you got so far in the ocean. Then what? Oh, we'll just have a bunch of empty containers. Let's put them back where they were. and keep letting this, wherever this is coming from, fill those tanks. And then in a few more years, we'll tell everybody that worked so well before, we're going to do it again. But wait, there's more. If you call now, we'll do it a third time. We'll throw in a third dumping and polluting the ocean for free. Just pay shipping and handling of those plastic tubs they're using, okay? Almost. Almost. Hard to believe. Money. He needs money. Needs to save money. A disaster of epic proportions. We could deal with this better, but we're not, because it just costs too much. You know? Just costs too much. So what's going to happen to the global sea life fish population? J-Snip4 does, in fact, like seafood. Do you know where I was tonight? One of my daughters said, well, we'd celebrate their birthdays early. But Ian came earlier because Ian was going to be born around their birthday in February. So Ian came about a month early. Okay, we did your birthdays anyways, but it's really your birthday coming up, which we celebrated tonight. And where do you want to go? Red Lobster. Because I don't eat that shit. I slapped that shit right off my table. Says Rosine from the Jerky Boys. I don't eat... You got lobsters? Yeah, we got lobster. Oh, because I don't eat that shit. I licked it. I licked that shit and I slapped that shit right off my table. What the hell kind of prank call is that? I'm going to leave you with a little chuckle at the end of this video because this is disturbing. Take care.